Day Dre. Ooh, wait, wrong podcast. Hello. You are listening to the only podcast to have not been murdered by Kendrick Lamar. That's right, you're listening to FGC Cast. I am your esteemed battle rapper of literally the 90s, the Purple Sharpie, and I am joined by your favorite MC, definitely not Canadian, SakiSakura. How you doing, Saki?
I'm like mustard on the beat, bro.
Yeah.
What's up, everyone?
Great to have you here, Saki.
Thank you.
You know, so much news has happened. Obviously, we had the Super Bowl this past Sunday. Did you have a chance to watch it, perchance?
Okay. Not to get political or anything, but I was like,
talk about it,
let me tell you, after what happened with Mike Tyson and Logan Paul, and it's Black History Month, I need Black people to win this past Sunday, and I was very happy that we could celebrate in just pure Black joy as it should be on this gorgeous month.
Honestly, huge freaking same. You know, I just want to say, on behalf of literally every single Black woman on earth, thank you, Kendrick Lamar. Thank you for your service. And, you know, we will get into that briefly today. I know that wasn't actually on the agenda. I completely forgot to add it, but we will talk about that halftime show because there was some relevant gaming news inside of it. If you know, you know, but we'll get into some of that. But I actually want to start off by asking Saki, what's new with you? What have you been up to?
Well, Sharpie, you know, between all my voice acting and commentating.
Wait. Rewind. Did you just say voice acting? Are you inside of a video game, girly pop?
Yes. Coming up in Valentine's Day, you can play an update that will feature and allow you to date a certain Mew, which, by the way, there's two characters, I'm not gonna spoil, but one of them is polyamorous. So, you know, just Saki wants to have fun.
Yeah, no, not a Saki wants to have fun. Okay, girly pop, I hear you. You know, you can't contain the love that you have to give. And I do want to remind our listeners that even though we are recording this on February 12th, 2 days before Valentine's Day, this episode will be coming out February 18th. So if you've not already, Saki, where can they actually go to support you and very possibly date your voiced character?
Great question, Sharpie. So first and foremost, the game is called Coaster Kisser. You can find it actually on Blue Sky, as well as I'll be retweeting it. I'll be giving Sharpie the link as well so she could post it under the podcast episode in terms of like under our YouTube comments, or not comments, but description. So you'll get a chance to date me. Don't worry. I understand. I got a lot of husbandos, waifus, and demfus. You'll get a chance. I promise.
Well, you know, who's that one guy from Love and D Space? Starts with an S? What's his name? You're not cheating on Silas now, are you?
Listen, I got speaking of what I've been up to, by the way, I got all three of my cards. I got Silas, Caleb, and Zane in the most spiciest of fashions. But anyways, yes, you'll be able to
Okay, I hear you, girl. Go off. Now, not to also toot my own horn, this isn't obviously as exciting as voicing a character inside of a game. I gotta give you props because honestly, Saki, I've never done any voice work inside of a game. It's always been like, you know, one of the things I want to knock off of my bucket list. But I will tell you, I did manage to actually become an NGS creator under Sega. So I play this game, and I've been playing this game now since, oh my gosh, 2013, late 2013, early 2014, Phantasy Star Online 2. They came out with Phantasy Star Online 2 New Genesis back inside of 2021, and I've been putting in an application literally every single month for the past 3.5 years to get into this program, and I finally did, Saki. I'm so incredibly proud about like getting accepted, and I just want to thank Sega, and I also want to thank all of my community because I've been streaming PSO2 for like the past 2.5 years now. At this point, I actually have more time inside of Phantasy Star Online 2 than I do inside of a game like Skullgirls, which I know that sounds crazy. I know that sounds wild, but that's just the way it goes sometimes. You know what I mean? But yeah, thank you to everyone inside of my community for supporting me. and making sure that I was able to essentially get where I needed to get when it came to stuff like this. But I'm really genuinely very, very happy and very excited about the opportunity to now be able to be a part of the Sega creator family, you know? So thank you again. But not to take away from some of the upcoming news that we have here, because I happen to know, Saki, didn't you like commentate a tournament or something like that? Did that happen?
Well, it's going to happen, Sharpie. So actually, I will be commentating over in Mexico City for the first spot of the Mortal Kombat 1 Pro Tour. Now, Sharpie, something to like kind of put into perspective for our listeners and viewers. So this has been a goal of mine since I started my work in commentating fighting games. Just fighting games, by the way, not like I had done, previous work before. But back when MK11 first came out, one of the most prominent memories and one of the reasons why I started commentating was because I remember actually going to watch the finals featuring Gur from Dynamic Focus at the time, and I was like, I want two things. I want to commentate, and I want to be part of a team that actually cares about me the way that they cared about Gur. And I'm now happy to really say that I have been able to achieve both of those dreams. One being on Dynamic Focus in the history in my past, and now being able to actually commentate. I mean, this has been 6 years in the making.
Yeah. No, I'm so proud of you, Saki. I know you've been working just genuinely so hard inside of the Mortal Kombat scene. I'm genuinely very, very happy that you're now being recognized officially by Warner Brothers for not just your continental United States work, but the talents that you have inside of the Hispanic community as well. Because if I understand correctly, this is your first event outside of EVO to be international. Is that correct?
That is correct. I was actually like stressing out in like middle of December because I had to get my passport. And so I was like, okay, we got to put a rush on this. And then, of course, with everything going on in the real world, it's like, when am I going to get my password? Or not my password, my passport.
Yeah. I'm so proud of you, Saki. That's a huge accomplishment and just a really big FGC cast. Congratulations to SakiSakura, who's been grinding inside of the Mortal Kombat community, even off of this podcast and outside of her personal life, to make sure that she achieves this. Congratulations again, Saki.
Thank you.
Now, let's get into the news. All right. So, everybody, we are recording this, and a very large event known as the PlayStation State of Play was today. Before we get into that, we have to talk about the Kendrick Lamar halftime show. Saki, are you prepared to talk about the Kendrick Lamar halftime show? I honestly didn't know if I was going to be ready for this or not, first of all right? So I just want to preface all of this by saying, one, I know there were some issues overwhelmingly with the halftime show's audio on different fronts, but I actually watched the halftime show on Tubi and I had a fantastic experience. I was very, very happy. Apple actually sponsored this halftime show, and what I want to specifically talk about is this scene right here on the halftime show. This is an important scene because we have people like, obviously, we have Samuel L. Jackson, but this little scene right here, there's actually a loading bar. And if you look, what does that look like to you?
Actually, Sharpie, I got tea for you about this. So,
hey, yo,
yes, I got tea. Yo. So first and foremost,
yes,
I'm glad you caught the loading bar, because one of the things that I had read is that this was supposed to be, so the symbols are supposed to obviously mimic the game, right? And so you're like loading into the game. But the rhythm and pattern of the lights, Sharpie, there's a purpose behind it. Do you want to know?
Oh, you need to talk to me right now, girl, because me and my husband have been trying to figure this out literally for the last 3 days now.
It's a cheat code.
And I don't know. A cheat code for what game, though?
Grand Theft Auto, I think 3.
You lying.
I'm not.
No, you're dead. Girl.
I'm not, Sharpie. I found this
don't
out
tell me
today.
no lies.
So the cheat code, obviously, when do you input a cheat code? Either in the title menu or on the loading bar. So this is supposed to be a cheat code for Grand Theft Auto. I believe it's 3, if not 4, but it's one of those where you can input that cheat code inside it for, I think, unlimited ammo, if I'm not mistaken. So
That's
it's actually
crazy.
on purpose.
That's Kendrick, the god that you are. And then you have the little start here screen. So I will say, the one thing that I did not appreciate was that I saw a couple of posts on Blue Sky, and they're from the African American community, so I'm like, okay, they're part of the culture, whatever, right? I'm not going to immediately ignore them. But the thing that frustrated me was people were saying it was Squid Games.
Yes, and I agree with you. I think that's also very frustrating as well, because what's so interesting about that, Sharpie? Mm-hmm. Because we know what it really is, because obviously an interview was done and it was confirmed.
Yeah.
That's why we know what it is. And I'll let you take that.
I knew what it was before the interview, to be honest with you.
My first thought wasn't Squid Games. My first thought was, wait a minute.
There was an umbrella.
Exactly.
There was an umbrella. There was no X or anything like that. It was very simple. It was a square, a triangle, a circle, and an umbrella.
Correct.
Literally. And I'm like, that right there with the loading bar, and in addition, at the end of all of that, it says game over. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, when on the Squid Games does it say game over? It never says that. Exactly. It really felt like a huge reach, and I was like, it's okay, you guys, you don't play video games, I get it, but this is the part where I want to talk about the importance of PlayStation and Black culture. Yes. And not even just Black culture, but I would say, and to make it more about class for a second, and just inside of general low income culture, Saki, and if I could just use you for a moment as an example, can I ask, did you guys have a PlayStation inside of your home? Like, did your parents at all grow up with a PlayStation or anything like that inside the house? Was that one of your first consoles?
So,
like, maybe not yours, but maybe someone else in your family?
So it was actually my uncle's, because my uncle, he was the smallest, youngest out of my mom and my aunt. And when I was born, he was like in his he was like 18, 19. And so he had a PlayStation 3. So he actually had the PlayStation. For me, and this is just more because of many reasons in the Latin culture for women, I was always on the Nintendo side and didn't get into the PlayStation world until I got my first PSP. But I did have a PSP.
I want to be very clear. I'm the exact same way. When I was a kid, the very first video game console I played was a Sega Genesis. We didn't actually own it. It was inside of a dentist office. That was the very first time I ever remember playing a video game, was playing Sonic Pinball on the Sega Genesis. And the very first console that my family ever actually owned was a Nintendo 64 that my mother bought for me, because my parents were separated. My mother bought for me and my brothers, and we all played that, right? PlayStations at that point in time were actually more expensive, but overwhelmingly similar to your story, the older generation before us, before the 90s kids, that was the Sony generation. PlayStations were affordable compared to their counterparts. And that was a very intentional decision by Sony. In addition, overwhelmingly, the PlayStation 2 and the PlayStation 3 had some of the most, I'm sorry, not the PlayStation 2 and 3, but the PlayStation 1 and 2 had the most fighting games. And that's the games that you wanted to play as a fighter or anything like that outside of the Sega Genesis or Sega Saturn for people of color, especially inside of low to middle class income areas, which is why I understand Kendrick Lamar, who's slightly older than me, making a reference specifically to Sony as opposed to a Nintendo or Sega device. That makes sense to me,
I also want to mention and just back up what you're saying, Sharpie, because in one of his songs where he does a song with his cousin called The Hillbillies, he's actually mentioning and playing a PlayStation.
See, because the god that Kendrick is. Also, I just want to say, Saki. Saki.
You okay?
Saki. These visuals.
The visuals were insane.
Oh
can
my
I just
God.
say
Just
something
this
really
section
quick?
right here.
It's super frustrating when I look onto socials and the one thing that I keep hearing or seeing, better said, is like, oh, I didn't get it. I couldn't hear. And I'm like,
it wasn't for you. It wasn't for you.
It was
but I
not
will say
for
that
you.
I couldn't hear thing. The I couldn't hear thing was actually valid, because even though I was able to hear crystal clear on Tubi and my experience was proper, I went on YouTube afterwards and the YouTube audio is horrid.
Really?
It is bad. Yes. Compared to, and I had to actually go back because we did actually locally record it on Tubi just so that we could watch it later, because I was like, well, I want to make sure I have it so like I can watch in perpetuity because I'm that type of person. But like, it was frustrating. Oh my God, we got hit with the ads. They got me, Saki. They got me.
They got you. They got you.
They got me. No, but it was one of those things where when I went back, because we were watching it on YouTube on our Chromecast, and when I watched it and I listened to it on YouTube, I was like, was the audio this bad? And then it was like, I had to go back and check, and I was like, oh no, the audio wasn't this bad. But that makes a lot of sense to me, to anyone who was like, I couldn't understand what he was saying. Because when I was watching the YouTube version from my Google Chromecast, I couldn't understand anything the man was saying. And I was like, this is not the experience that I had watching it live on Tubi. And apparently Fox's audio was just that version.
You know
from
what?
The YouTube.
That explains so much now, because when my dad was watching with us, we were all watching as a family. Even I was like trying to like hear the audio clearly, but thankfully, like I'm someone that I see the visuals and I do know some of the songs, so it was like, okay, my brain is helping me hear because it's grabbing from my memory. But my dad was just like, I see the visuals, but like I don't understand. I'm gonna have to wait till like articles come out for me to actually
hear it. Yeah. That was a huge drop, I want to say, and a very big disappointment. But that was nothing that I don't think Kendrick could have controlled that. I think that was just a broadcasting issue, honestly, because Fox is the people that like uploaded it to YouTube through the NFL channel. And so I think they just grabbed that recording, and it's just really unfortunate, honestly. But I'm thankful that I had like the raw recording from Tubi. And this isn't a Tubi ad or anything, I promise listeners. It's really not. It's just that's where I listen, because to be honest with you, I don't care about American football. This sport is dumb. It takes forever. Regular football, like football, like soccer, that sport is fun because people are consistently moving. But I'll tell you right now, I started watching the Super Bowl when there was like 2 minutes left of time, and it took me 20 minutes to get to the halftime show. I must have watched 30 ads in the 2 minutes of playtime for American football. And that's why I don't watch American football. You know what I mean, Saki? Like I
get you.
It was messy. But hey, we're gonna move on to the very next subject. Basically, essentially, shout outs to Kendrick Lamar. That was an amazing performance. We all appreciated it. I thought it was funny. Similar to what T-Pain said. T-Pain said that guy only got 3 choreographed moves, and he did all 3 of those dance moves.
Great.
that was shady, but T-Pain's correct. Kendrick, you showed up and you showed out, bro. Thank you so much for murdering Drake for all of our entertainment. We appreciate it. Now, getting back into some of the game news around the thing we were talking about before, which was specifically PlayStation, there was a 24-hour outage for PlayStation Network this past weekend. Starting on, I believe it was like February 7th or 8th. Basically, the service was down. Like, down. Like, nobody could log into PlayStation if you had digital games, if you wanted to play Fortnite or Phantasy Star Online 2 New Genesis or Roblox, or more importantly, the Monster Hunter Rise demo that was a limited time beta that you could only play on certain consoles. You were out of luck. PlayStation specifically came out with a statement that read as thus: Network services have fully recovered from an operational issue. We apologize for the inconvenience and thank the community for their patience. All PlayStation Plus members will automatically receive an additional 5 days of service. Now, I do want to note, this is very, very important. They were radio silent the entire time the outage was happening. That was surprising. I also want to let our listeners know, in full transparency, I am a PlayStation Playmaker, meaning that I am actively sponsored by Sony. I have nothing else to note outside of that, but it is obviously an important thing that I should state at the start of this. Saki, what were your thoughts about this outage, and did it affect you at all?
It did. So on the 7th, I actually was streaming. I was actually streaming some Mortal Kombat, but I took the time that it was out to actually like lab and learn Katana, because Mortal Kombat's been out. I wanted to learn a character. Yeah. So it worked out for me in a way. And then the next day I was at MegaCon working, because I was working for my school. And the one thing though that I think echoed in my mind, Sharpie, or actually I'll say two things. The two things that echoed in my mind was, yes, the communication for sure. Because that was huge. Once it passed, I would say like once it became the 8th and it was still down, it kind of just brought flashbacks of what happened in the early 2000s, where it was like it was down for what, like a week or so. Because of that compromise, and like when it came back up, they were like, by the way, all of your credit information is gone and such. That was messy. So, and then not only that, like in this day and age where now that not only is that something that's been so common, but like your information becomes just so risky. It was just like the silence. It was really frustrating. It was scary. Very scary. It was scary. I agree, and I understand completely. I had similar fears. I think it wasn't as frustrating for me because there aren't any games that I play exclusively on PlayStation, if that makes sense. Yes. I really did want to play Undernight and Birth 2, which I only own on PlayStation. And I just also labbed on there and played against like some of the, story mode and just bots and arcade and stuff. But I did want to play a little bit of ranked just this past weekend. And I was a little frustrated that I couldn't do that. But it was harder not because I wanted to stream. Yeah. I just got creator. I wanted to be able to stream on the weekend, and I couldn't stream because it's like, even though I have a very strong computer, I usually stream from my PlayStation 5 using my capture card and then stream it through OBS on my computer, and I would have had to stream it from PC. And that was a little bit inconvenient, but it was like, okay, well, I guess I just can't stream. And I agree about the miscommunication. It really felt like a missed opportunity for PlayStation to kind of get ahead of negative press, because, like, just to be totally honest, it was trending on Blue Sky. Yes, it was. So PlayStation Network was trending on Blue Sky for the outage. Now, the other thing that also echoed in my mind, and I think this was more of like the bigger issue for me, is once again, it is another proof that this move to being digital only is so risky. Yeah, you're not wrong. That's the hard thing that I'm still on the fence about right now, especially when it comes to like consoles, right? Because in some regard, you do run issues specifically with people actually trying to like jailbreak their console and do quote unquote illegal things on it, right? I'm not even talking about pirating. I mean literally like trying to run things that you should not be running on your PlayStation at all. And I understand wanting to stop that from happening, but there was a very big push in the late 2000s and early 2010s against, hey, we want to have live service exclusively. And specifically, PlayStation is one of the only platforms that doesn't make you pay to play online. They're one of the only ones. You do need to have a PlayStation account. You do need to be connected to PlayStation account, but you don't have to have like a paid service in order to play an online game for most games. Like, it doesn't cost me any money to play
Phantasy Star Online 2 on my PlayStation. That is free to play, and it is an MMO, so I can connect with other people playing it.
Wait.
I know.
So sorry.
Yeah, what's up?
You mean you don't pay for PlayStation Plus when you play Phantasy Star?
Oh, no. I do play for PlayStation Plus, but Phantasy Star Online 2 doesn't require PlayStation Plus in order to play online.
Okay, gotcha. I understand what you're saying now.
So, yeah, there are very, and I mean very, very few, like, consoles that still set that up, and even fewer games that still allow that. I remember when that was a contentious debate back in, like I said, the late 2000s, early 2010s, and I absolutely despise that. I despise the concept of you pay for a game and now you also have to pay for the online feature after you've already paid for the console. That's silly to me, to be honest. I'm still surprised that that's the just general gist of things that we've gone with. But, you know, now that we're on the topic of it, Saki, how do you feel about like having to pay for online access in a video game?
So I've always been paying for online access. Like I pay for my Nintendo Switch Plus, or not Plus, but Nintendo Switch Online. I play for my PlayStation Plus.
But before all of that, when you were first starting, like, what was your very first video game console?
It was the 3DS. I'm sorry, it was Game Boy,
the 3DS,
and then 3DS.
Yeah.
DS,
but
and then
the 3DS. The 3DS didn't require a payment in order for you to play online. You just bought the game.
And the thing is that I wasn't playing online games either. That's the biggest thing, right? Is like, and maybe that's why I was so easily accepting of like, okay, if I want to play, like, let's say Splatoon, or if I want to play, at the time it was like, I remember there was like a Dead or Alive game that was on the 3DS, and I was like, oh, I guess I could try to play it, but I didn't even play the online because I was like getting my butt beat, and I was like 10 years old. Like, I don't want to be doing that. So
yeah.
I think so as far as like paying a subscription for it, I do like that PlayStation has given me more. So obviously we have like the game catalog, and you know, I do have a lot more hours now in online games than I do in just single player games. But one thing I do just want to like really quickly mention, Sharpie, is when I think of, because I can kind of already hear some people be like, oh, but you have to download the updates for the game, Sharpie. Yes, you do. However, I'm pretty sure if I popped in after I've downloaded the game on my initial, you know, on the server, right? I'm pretty sure I can still, at least I can still play the game once I pop in the disc. Like,
no, you definitely can. That's the
whereas
thing.
a lot of people were literally unable to connect.
No, like, so the thing is, the cheaper model of the PlayStation 5 is the discless model, right? Exclusively digital. So if you had that model, you could not play any PvP games. You couldn't play any fighting games. You also, just as an aside, if you do have the PlayStation, like, you know, online, what is it called? The PlayStation service, you know which one I'm talking about, right? Like the whole subscription thing. If you have that, they give you a bunch of games underneath it at the highest tier. You had no access to those games anymore. Even if they're downloaded and installed on your console, you couldn't play them. I think the craziest thing to me is that it happened on the weekend.
Yes, I think
so
too.
When most people play video games, because most people work 9-to-5 jobs and are free on the weekends. And like a 72-hour outage? Yikes. But we're gonna move on to more positive news here, because I promise there is very positive news. The PlayStation State of Play actually somewhat eclipsed the outage when it came to news here. My personal favorite game that I've been excited for, and my husband's been excited for, Monster Hunter Rise. We saw gameplay for that here, but we also saw quite a few other games. And I have to ask here, Saki, because I know if I went into every single game that was shown here, I would be incredibly remiss. You know what? Actually, why don't I just do it? Why don't I just talk about all of the games that were showcased at the PlayStation State of Play, and then we can go ahead and get into it, okay? Let's start. Firstly, the game that everybody was talking about, and the game that I was personally excited was Shinobi, which was the game that was created from the same developers that brought us Street of Rage, has an announcement date and time of August 29th. I just want to say this game looks absolutely amazing. I'm incredibly excited for it. As a matter of fact, you know what? Let me just go ahead and actually pull it up on this video here, because when I saw the gameplay immediately, I was like, oh my gosh. Let me see. Let me just skip forward a little bit more. Oh, I actually went past too far, a little bit too far. That's Sonic. This game, look at that gameplay. Don't that look clean?
It does.
Like, I can definitely see it being Streets of Rage for like a line. You know what I mean? Like, oh my gosh. And in addition, Sega was responsible for publishing this game. Then also inside of the Sega realm, we also have Sonic Racing Crossworlds. I'm not as excited about this game, but I think that's just me. You know, I'm not a very big like racer person in general, but I know that there are a lot of people who are, and that's totally fine. Y'all can be racing people.
I'm also the same way. I'm not a racing person either.
Me. I think it's just me, you know? We have Digimon Stories. Digimon Stories is obviously, they also have the World Wrestling game. We have Digimon Stories, Borderland 4, Split Fiction, Five Nights at Freddy, Secret of Mimic. So they're coming out with this new Five Nights at Freddy, you know, that's the 5th version of the game. Very heavily anticipated, popular game. There's a lot of lore behind this game. To be honest, I couldn't even start. I couldn't even start to describe exactly what this game
really
is about or anything. Like, there's so much, bro. And it's not just a theory, it's a game theory. But all right. The Midnight Walk finally got a release date. Darwin Paradox launches this year. Onimusha finally is coming out. We have Hell Is Us launching September of this year. Lies of P gets additional DLC, the Overture DLC this year. Days Gone is being remastered. Lost Records, Bloom and Rage is coming to the PlayStation Plus games category, or the catalog, you know, one of the things that you get for actually subscribing to PlayStation. And we're also getting Mind's Eye, which is a new game that's really cyberpunky in general. And also Saurus is another game that no announcement date, but it's just one of those things where it's like they announced that they're working on it. It's coming up, it's happening, and we're moving forward. So with all of that in mind, Saki, I have to ask, what are you the most excited for from this PlayStation State of Play this year?
Okay. Woo! All right, so first,
it's a lot. I know it's a lot.
It's actually, I think, one of their longest PlayStation states of play too.
Oh, free
for sure,
free.
Which is great because it's just
this thing was like an hour and a half long.
Yeah. So okay, first at the top of my list, Lost Soul. That has been 10 years in the making by a solo dev, and this was one of the games that was supposed to launch with the PS5 release, but because of pandemic and just everything that was happening, obviously it didn't pan out that way. So I'm very excited because there's a lot of like Versus 13 effects or like inspiration inside there. Plus more Chinese developers are doing an amazing job in their games and actually like really putting the stakes when it comes to competing with Japanese devs as well. The second game that I'm really excited about is Hell Is Us. And then the last one that I'm also really excited, which was closer to the end of the state of play, was I believe it was called Tides of...
this one right here, right?
Yes. No, this was actually Saurus. So this one's Saurus. It's
Tides of Annihilation,
yes.
right?
I was like, this feels a lot like King Arthur inspired. And then when I actually looked into it more, I'm like, it is. So it's like, I'm really excited because it reminds me a little bit of like Nier Automata, but also again, just very nicely put together. For
this one right here.
Like look how gorgeous that is. And
oh, it does look good. Oh, that does. I'm just gonna freeze on. What a shot!
It's a great shot.
What a shot!
It's a gorgeous
Saki.
shot. And the minute I heard like Gwendolyn, I'm like, oh, wait a minute. This feels like it's definitely.
Look at her.
Yeah.
Yes, girl.
And then of course I am excited for Lies of P DLC. I haven't played that game, but it's because I've been waiting for it to like lower a little bit in price so that I can just dive into it. And now I'm officially gonna go in because I'm super excited for it.
No, we covered a lot this episode. You know, we had a lot to talk about, and I think overwhelmingly, even with the missteps from the outage, ultimately Sony had a very strong showing during the state of play. And I, for one, am just very, very excited to see what they do moving forward to kind of like make up for that specific misstep. Because the one thing I do know about Sony, and this is why I was a very big Sony fangirl even before I became sponsored by Sony for the Sony PlayStation Playmaker program, was Sony to me has always felt like a company that tries to do right by the people that purchase their game and the people that purchase their products. And as someone who cares a lot about specifically the hardware inside of whatever I use, I'm like a big hardware freak, even just inside of computers and technology in general. Like, I'm always very, very appreciative of the fact that Sony takes extra time to like fill up whatever you purchase with some of the highest tech available at the time for a decent cost. You know what I mean, Saki? Like, I know I'm fangirling right now. I get it.
I'm a PlayStation girly too. I understand what you mean. I think that's one of the reasons why I've thought about Xbox, but I've never really gone and bought an Xbox because I'm just like, I feel like I can just easily have a better experience with PlayStation and get my money's worth, not just in the console and the level of the console, but an experience throughout the whole time I'm playing.
Yeah, and I'm not saying this to like trounce on anybody who uses the Xbox. It's just not my console. I'm not a big fan of some of like Microsoft stuff, but I do really like Sony, and I do really like PlayStation. Even outside of just the gaming realm, I really like the hardware that they use inside of their monitors, inside of their cameras, even, and I'm gonna say this and most people will not know what I'm talking about, inside of their phones. Did you know that they came out with a phone in the early 2000s?
I did.
It was a mistake, but they did it. But anyway, with that, dear viewer, we have now come to the end of yet another episode of FGC Cast. Thank you so much for listening. Saki, look at us. Look at us going into season 3, guns blazing, coming out with even more hate for crazy, ridiculous business models focusing on money than Kendrick Lamar and Drake. You know, I really phoned that one. Let me reset that. Coming out with even more hate against predatory battle pass practices than Kendrick does with Drake. That man really got murdered on, bro, that was crazy. I'm still in awe of that. But hey, you know what, Saki? You covered a lot of stuff today, specifically your voice acting, your upcoming, the voice acting, which is now currently available. And if I want to figure out or find out where and when I can purchase the game, in addition to where and when I can check you out for this Mexico tournament, where can I find it?
So you can find the game in the link that I will give to Sharpie so she can put it in the description.
I will be putting it in there, but it will be posting on your Blue Sky.
Thank you. You see, I almost said Saki. Oh my God, Sharpie's got me. As you can see, my brain's frazzled. But you can find me.
We're friends and colleagues, unlike Kendrick Lamar and Drake.
You can find me on my website. All of my links, SakiSakura TV.info. That's where you can find me everything.
Fantastic. And you know as well, Saki, usually during these credit scenes, I like to shout out people that have been personally supporting us. We actually had one YouTube comment, which I am now going to read live on stream, just because, you know, we appreciate our fans and our communities that are keeping up with the podcast. I know, like I said, I think I said this last episode, but I know we haven't been the most consistent, but we're doing our best. We really, truly are trying. And I want to thank the fun child, the fun chid LC, who stated, "I like it when you get off topic. Hearing the conversation around video games and where they're at is super interesting. I'm just a casual, so this stuff is fascinating to me. I was definitely one of the people afraid to spend money on multiverses, had the same issue with the grind, and it made me fall off of it." Any thoughts here on that comment specifically, Saki?
I'm just so happy that we can inspire, and not only that, also relate to our viewers. I feel like, you know, sometimes when we have these conversations, it's a little bit harder to actually have this interaction when we're all doing recorded shows. So it makes me really happy that, you know, we still get that relatable feeling with each other, and that we can still have these conversations.
I want to thank you as well, the fun child. I responded over to your comment, just thank you for enjoying our off-topic conversation. Myself and Saki have both been having very private conversations off the podcast, talking about where we want to go with the specific podcast, because there is fighting game news happening right now, but it's not all entirely positive. We don't want to make anybody's day worse by sharing what we consider drama on our platform. And so we try to share the highlights, the important news, to make sure that people stay informed about what's happening in the fighting game community, while also not diving into things that we consider lowbrow or low effort. And sometimes that means that there's not enough news to cover an entire episode. So I'm just very thankful that there's someone out there who's listening and is like, hey, even when we're not talking about fighting games, I'm still enjoying listening to you guys talk about the game industry. Thank you very much for that. That helps us feel a lot better about the energy that we put into this podcast. And it also makes me feel a lot better when I have to go read the comments and reply, you know? So when it's not, hey, we hate you so much, die, you know? That's always great. I also want to call attention to a Blue Sky comment we received. This comment comes from user @JackieWTF, who specifically says, they're actually paraphrasing something that I said, which says it's a bad time to make video games, which is kind of something I was talking about. He was concerned because he's working on an alpha build for a video game, and he's like, oh no, you know? And I just want to say, firstly, Jackie, thank you so much for listening to the podcast. I know you just started listening literally today. That means a lot. I'm also really happy that you found not only entertainment, but knowledge inside of the conversations that both myself and Saki had regarding some of the profit losses that we've seen inside the AAA community. And I'm glad that you also were able to relate and take information away from IPs, you know, basically being milked for profit and hurting communities that play them. Saki, do you have any thoughts?
Don't let your dreams be memes.
Don't let your dreams be memes. And yes, listener, we will see you offline.